Thank you for being with us today, Brian.
A pleasure to have me here. Thank you.
All right, just to get us started, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what falls under your oversight within your organization.
So I currently work under a healthcare organization, a managed service organization here in Miami area. I oversee currently about 300 plus offices throughout the state of Florida. I handle everything from the IT operations, data center, security, different, a little bit of a mix of different IT aspects. I also oversee all of the vendors from our multiple MSPs. I deal with over 20 different MSPs throughout the state. And I also manage them and direct them throughout our different needs in the organization.
What are some of the ways in which you can measure the level of maturity and success of a cybersecurity program? Do you have any examples you can share?
Yeah, so there's a few different frameworks out there. One of the ones we like to look at is the NIST CSF, which is it's one of the big ones out there. There's a few other ones depending on what industry you're in. But a lot of this kind of falls into the five key areas, which kind of goes into the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recovery. And these areas is more or less you're going to run a baseline across your organization and then see where you fall within these categories. It's very hard nowadays to kind of say how well are you doing in the cybersecurity realm, especially with all the current threats and different exploits happening out there. So the NIST CSF, which is it's everybody can look it up. You can go to NIST.gov and see it and download their spreadsheets and answer the questions. And it does gives you a strong high level. So one of the things you do see a lot difference when you start answering these things, you're going to notice quickly that most companies are pretty good on the out of the five elements, the identify. You're going to notice you're pretty good. Most people are doing asset management nowadays. Most people are meeting a lot of the initial the initial scope of the first, I guess, tier of or I guess like the first element of the NIST CSF. Then you'll start noticing when you get to protect, a lot of companies investing heavily there too. For years, that's where we were all putting all of our money, right? Antivirus, firewalls, that's where a lot of the protect. Then you start getting into detect and respond. Falls back on your scale a little bit. You start noticing you got some weak spots there. In the last few years, that's where our focus has been, right? Many organizations are trying to they're trying to invest heavily in detect and response solutions, the new next gen EDRs and different things in there. And then you get into the recovery phase, which is more or less, business continuity and disaster recovery. So when you look at these, you want to kind of lay these out. These are great for your board levels. Now, I always tell people, you fill these out and you don't want to say, hey, we hit a level 4, we're good, we're walking away. No. You still want to go in there and say, we might have, we are hitting a 3 to 4 in maturity, but you want to look at where do you want to be? Where does your company want to be? You also want to look at it from a perspective of, is this right? Do we feel safe enough? If we're a 3, does that make us, do we still have holes? And that's where you want to start trying to continue, do your, make sure you do a gap analysis, make sure you do your risk assessments, continue to do different things like, vulnerability scans and pen tests, test those measures and that maturity, because sometimes you feel that you're at a strong number. And you might be in a better number here, but you're still not there here. And you want to make sure you have those when you're clear, especially when you explain this to the board and to your security or to the board and anybody on your if you have any compliance committees or IT committees, you want to make sure that you're explaining to them where you fall, what your maturity state is, and what does that mean to them, and where do you want to be.
You mentioned something to do with the different maturity levels. I think you mentioned level 3 and level 4. Is that something that an organization, or let's say any small business that will be trying to safeguard their data from data breaches? Is there a specific maturity level that they should be targeting, or how do you guys assess that?
Well, I think it really comes down to, and it really depends on, there's no right or wrong, right? The whole thing here is this is not compliance at that level. This is more of just understanding where you fall in the aspect. So when you look at this and you go, okay, we're dealing with HIPAA, your security is going to be a little bit stronger, and you have to understand the higher you are on that the higher you are on the scale, also the more money you're going to start investing, right? Most companies that are already a stage are at a 5 in maturity, they know the amount of data they have, and they are heavily investing in security and security on that side from a infrastructure and respond react perspective. Now, when you're a smaller business, I think you have to look at it from perspective of how much data do you really have? What are you trying to protect? Are you doing PCI compliance? Okay. Are you storing the credit cards? No, my merchant is. Okay. So you kind of tone that down a little bit. So maybe a 2 or 3 might be fine for you, but somebody in these other sectors might look at it and go, hey, we're storing data, we're hosting systems. We need to make sure we're at that higher level of maturity, and then continuing, because you might be up there today, things change in the market, security threats change, and now you're back to a 3 again. And some of these things are just kind of, when you start looking at the NIST CSF and you start looking at the documentation, there's categories and subcategories, and it might be as simple as just saying, hey, we asset tag all of our computers. We know what we have out there. And that puts you in identify. Does that make you more secure than the other person? No, but it just shows that you guys have, and then how good you are in that area. Because you might meet recovery, but you might not be at the level as, a bigger corporation, so, you have to kind of find that middle ground. And that's a business decision in the end.
One last follow-up to the response you just provided. I'm curious to know, from a risk-reward perspective, is it always better to have a third party storing your data? Like, I think you mentioned the financial transactions, or do you want to have that that data element being stored within your own servers?
Okay, well, this comes down to risk mitigation, right? It kind of falls into, what is your, and it also falls, what sometimes dictates this is a lot of your industry regulations. In the HIPAA aspect, from my healthcare background, I would say, putting information in the cloud can be done. But, and sometimes if you don't have the staff and you want to push things off to have better security, sometimes people feel they have better security. They feel they're more resilient by being out in the cloud. And that's fine. You just have to make sure you stick with certain things. Question, just because you're talking to, X, Y, and Z corporation that hosts other companies out there, still, you want to make sure that you question them and you ask them for, hey, what are your current certifications? Are you ISO 2700? Are you, how do you conduct your risk assessments? Will you sign and you need the business associate? You want to make sure that if you're going to move things from one to the other, that you're meeting all of those aspects. Because even if you have it and that becomes a business choice, saying, hey, let's keep it on-prem, are we going to invest in a data center? Are we going to have the staff to keep that data center going? If they're not, let's look at cloud. Cloud is already going to provide the data center. It's going to do this. Now, are they going to sign the business associate? Are they going to be able to be, are they going to be, is it going to be private, or is it going to be shared across resources? So, all of this comes into play. And there really is no right or wrong on this. Now, I know most companies nowadays are moving cloud sector because they feel, hey, now we're just going into more of an application management more than taking on the full responsibility of managing the hardware, having our own data center staff, keeping up with all the, certain parts. So, I see a lot more people moving that route, and I think that's where the future is going to go. But, it's also, we have to do the due diligence from our side within the organizations, within our companies, to make sure that all of these vendors that are hosting our systems are following through and giving us, what we need from a security standpoint.
This leads to our next question. Organizations that have never suffered from cybersecurity breaches tend to have a low risk posture, which essentially refers to the status of the overall cybersecurity program that's been implemented by an organization. From your own expertise, what strategic recommendations would you make to companies and businesses that fall under this category so that they don't lower their guard in the expectation that they're unlikely to get hacked?
Well, I'm going to start this off with um, it's not a matter of if, but when. And I know we've all heard this before, and I'm going to say it again. It's not if, but when. And have you been hacked already? Because many people have already been breached and have no idea, or they don't know. And that's one of the where I like to start. You cannot. I always try. I know you hear sometimes and say, "Hey, I'm unlikely to get hacked," or "I'm a small target." I've heard that many times. I don't have anything to take. What are they going to get from us? But we all have something, and regardless if it's for game or for monetary value or to there could be something there, and we all have to look at it from that perspective. Do not let your guard down. You need to, and what I would recommend is do your risk assessments. Make sure that you're following up and you're making sure that you are meeting certain standards, even from a compliance. Even I know it's a check mark sometimes, and I say go above that. Make sure that you're doing security awareness training. If you want to check to see, how would be resilient. Figure out if you feel that you can't be hacked. What if you were? How would you bounce back? I recommend most to perform a tabletop exercise. Bring in your C-levels, bring in your IT. I don't care if it's one or two IT guys. Bring them in and see how you would respond if on a Monday morning you received a call that all your services are down and you are dealing with a ransomware attack. And the whole thing about this is making sure that you are ready, because it isn't about if, it's when. And when you're ready and you respond and you have an answer you have a way to recover from that, that is the key. And I that's something I do say to every company. Doesn't matter how big, how small. We recently just saw in the news some really big hacks out there. FireEye, we've had SolarWinds. I would not say that any of these companies were low in maturity or had bad security posture. These are very, well known and looked at in the industry very highly. And look, and unfortunately, it only takes one thing or one slip up, and that's all it takes. And so, just take it, from everybody here, and it's a learning. And moving forward is, test your infrastructure. Make sure that you guys are doing those vulnerability scans. Don't wait.
Well, talking about the companies that have been hacked before, what's the best response to, this public negativity about a company? Let's say company X got hacked and data got exposed, customer data got exposed. What is the best approach and remedy to that kind of a setup?
It's a hard one. Unfortunately, every person's going to view it from their own each person's going to look at this from their own point of view. Some people are going to say this, they did not do enough. Some are going to say, it happens. But it's really, I think it's very important to have a response in place for your organization in advance, to know when this happens, how will you address this? How would you respond to it? How are you going to show this? And then showing and I respect some of these companies that come out. FireEye came out very quickly and said, we were aware of this. They went public. They said, we are going to investigate this. We are going to put these types of remediations in place. And I think that's to me, from my perspective, and this is outside of anybody's control, but I honestly think that it says something about a company. Hey, we're human. We all make mistakes. We try our hardest. We invest heavily in these security and these different avenues of security. But in the end, when it does happen, we are there to clean up the mess as well, because if it happened, we need to figure out a way to clean it up and remediate it. So, I think it's just kind of pre-planning, and, you're always going to edit this because it's not going to be, 100%. You're not going to know what's going to happen. Today it's malware. Tomorrow it's a DDoS attack. Look at Miami-Dade County. Who would have expected that? But the whole thing here is saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We are investigating it. We're trying to figure out a way to do this. And we are looking at a way of, remediating this so that it doesn't happen again.
Looking into the future of cybersecurity, what are some of the latest technology trends that you foresee dominating the cybersecurity industry over the next 5 years? And how can companies better prepare for them?
Well, I'm going to take it back and say, let's take it to 3 years, because right now, nothing in the IT industry or even in the security industry is lasting 5 years anymore. We used to say 5 years for everything, right? Your plans, and so far we can barely keep up with what's the threat landscape, and even the IT landscape is changing so fast. You can't keep up with it. So I would say do 3 years, don't do 5. Let's do these strategic plans of 3 years, and start looking at it, and then looking at the future from that point. So what I think is from my point of view, I think artificial intelligence is gonna play a huge role in this. I think right now, we're seeing heavy demands in the security aspect, that they need resources, they need people, and we don't have them. We don't have people that are meeting the skill sets fast enough. We're not able to keep up with the threats fast enough. And I think artificial intelligence is going to help fill some of those gaps, and also help speed up a lot of these things when it comes down to identifying vulnerabilities, identifying anomalies in networks, and trying to get a little bit deeper into that. On the other side, I do see that the threat actors, our favorite hackers out there, will start using artificial intelligence as well. This is a cat and mouse game. Everybody's going to try to stay ahead. And if we're using AI to detect, they're going to use AI to evade. And I see that coming. I do see better tools coming out there. I see new things coming out. I see a lot more cybersecurity firms coming out in the industry, kind of trying to show us, trying to put new systems out there and new frameworks. And but overall, I do see artificial intelligence playing a huge role in this, and in changing how we currently operate. IT and automation, everything in automation. A lot of things, we can't keep up with the threats. Think about it. How many SOC analysts can a company have? How many analysts internally can you have? We're buying all these tools, and you don't have the people to manage them. So you have to automate. You have to help for automated responses. And I think that's going to be, that's where the future's headed.
What would you say to those that are opposed to automation at this juncture, given what you know about what's happening in the industry?
That's I know where that's going. Unfortunately, a lot of people see it as automation is going to steal the jobs, and we all look at it, right? I always say automation, and I think about the tolls. And you said, man, I remember when I used to have to throw that quarter in there, and I haven't seen a toll in years. So I understand, but with the tolls being removed, what came after? More technical IT jobs, right? We have to keep those. We have to keep that we have to keep those sensors going. We have to keep the photo systems going, and you always have to look at it about, you have to be able to accept change. And I understand that automation may remove, an analyst job from him checking, 400 lines of event logs coming in all day and looking for that, and it might become easier. You might need 3 instead of the 100 guys. But you know what? There's going to be a whole new area of employment that's going to open up also. We can't just look at it from, hey, this is the end. And we just have to be able to change with it and try to say, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do that, but my expertise is here, and I'm going to be able to do this, this, and this. So I think that's going to be the future there.
I like that analogy about the toll and toll workers and how that's transformed the industry to now people, there's new jobs that have been created, which is
Mhm.
people monitoring those sensors, creating the codes that will be used, with those sensors. So that's a great analogy.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that sometimes you got to dig a little bit deeper to kind of see how one is cut off, but new things are created. And I say it's a cycle. It is a cycle. Everything you lose and you gain, and unfortunately, most of the stuff is you may delay it a year or two. Let's say if we didn't do automation now, we do automation 5 years later. Then 5 years later, it's going to come anyway. So all you're doing is delaying the process. It's going to happen sooner or later. So this is coming down for everything. How many things did an IT technician or a system admin do 10 years ago that they don't do now? In a few years. I mean, my thing would be to make me obsolete. Make me move into another realm. I would hate. I want my guys to stop doing patching. I want systems like Kaseya and different things to take over and automatically do that and detect. So we don't have to have people babysitting that, and it's important. I think it's where we got to go.
Right. It's important to always upskill. Here at Process IT, I oversee the recruitment division of technical roles such as deep learning engineers, SREs, and even ethical hackers. What are some of the in-demand skills that pose a challenge in recruitment within your organization and the cybersecurity landscape?
Okay, so that's a good one because honestly, I'm gonna say, everybody wants to be, how can I say, everybody wants to be the hacker, and I think that is also creating skill gaps. Everybody wants to be at the top. They want to be the surgeon, but no one wants to be the nurse. And I tell people all the time, as much as we need the white hats, we also need the security analysts. We still need baby security guys, right? We still need the security plus and the entry level security guys to come in and learn and grow with us as well. And I think what's happening is, and I see it in the market too with the recruitment, that you read these ads and it's like need CISSP with 5 years experience, boom, boom, and you read this and you go, but like most of those guys are at a higher level. They've been in the industry a long time. They've been doing this for a while. They're not going to come in and want to do a risk assessment. They're not going to want to go out to an office and just do basic things. But there's a lot of growth and a lot of things you can learn out there. And you don't have to get the CISSP. You don't have to be the CSIM. You can, there's still a lot of avenues. There's a million different certifications out there right now. And there's a lot of things that for some reason people turn away lately when they see entry and intermediate level. And I say, we need those in the industry as well. And I think that's the hardest thing to find. Right now, it's kind of like this gap that you go from entry to like expert, and then you don't find that middle ground anymore. So, there's a lot of job opportunities in those areas. And sometimes just having those basics and don't feel afraid just to diversify your portfolio and saying, hey, I have some IT, I have a little bit of Microsoft background. I have my A plus, my security plus. I see people remove all of that and just put security. And it's like, no, put it all. Let us see it. Because guess what? If I'm trying to protect VMware, I want you to have a little bit of VMware experience in order with some security background to kind of fall in that. The same thing, like, hey, what if you just have basic, you've handled antivirus? Maybe I'm looking for somebody to do threat hunting for me in Carbon Black. There's a lot of things out there, and a lot of times you meet with candidates and they're afraid to say other things they've done. And I tell them, oh, but you did a little program? Oh, you did some of this? Oh, tell me a little bit more. And then they're kind of like, they stay a little bit, they look at you weird, like, oh, you like that? I go, hey, my background, I was a senior sysadmin for years. I started from the bottom and I moved my way up. And I say, sometimes it's important to have all those. That makes you. So I definitely say, don't be afraid to step in and start these new certifications. You know, we need the analysts. We still need the entry-level security guys. We need more people to have more understanding of risk and mitigation. You know, identity access management. There's a lot of room in there. Not everybody has to be the hacker.
Do you tend to get creative with your interviewing techniques?
Yes, all the time. You know, my thing here is I like people to be themselves, and my thing sometimes I kind of throw things out or I say things that and I'm going to take it from an interviewee, you know, from an interviewer perspective to the interviewee. I like to bring it down a notch. It doesn't have to be like, you know, like this weird tension in the room. I want you to be yourself. And if you're going to work with us, I want you to be the person you are normally. And don't get me wrong, I understand, you know, we have certain etiquettes and, you know what I'm saying, and people have to follow certain things and, you know, you suit up and you come in there perfect, but be yourself, loosen up. You know, I like you to break down. And then I say, you know, tell me what you've done. I try to pull out what you have accomplished. Everybody can put on their resume nowadays, A+. Everybody can put MCSE. Everybody can say, I touched Windows 10 or Server 2019, or I know what Active Directory is. What have you done? Like, hey, you ever had an issue where you try to create an OU and you couldn't, you know, how do you get, you know, I want to get around certain things. You know, what have you done? You worked with cybersecurity systems? Yeah, what do you do? You've worked with Carbon Black, you've worked with you know, certain firewalls, you've turned on, you know, what have you done with Microsoft with 365? So my thing is about drawing you out. And what I recommend to candidates is feel free to give a little bit more. Don't be so reserved. And I know it's a nervous thing to be in an interview, but when they sit in front of you, and I talk to people all the time and try to help, you know, kids coming out of school and try to work with them on my own. And I tell them all the time, you know, tell them what you've done, because sometimes the little things you've done, they might be looking for it. Hey, you know, part-time, I started doing forms. Oh, you built forms? Like, oh, give me some ideas. You know, sometimes you want to get that out of them. And I think that's my thing here. It's kind of like, I throw like a little piece of cheese and I hope that they come to it. You know what I mean? Like, and you want to try to draw that energy out of them, because sometimes I feel like interviews can be very, very stressful, and not everybody's going to be extroverts. Some people are introverts. You have to pull it out, and there might be an amazing person down there in that person right there that might change the way your organization runs.
How important are emerging risks in your information security vision, and how can we all better protect ourselves to ensure the security of our data across different online platforms?
So, yeah, a lot of things are moving. You know, I guess, you know, when you're saying emerging risks, you know, everything has changed, and very rapidly. For a long time, my threat landscape was nothing more than keeping things secure in my organization. You had onesie twosies that were out in the office, and you know what to do. The threat landscape and risk have increased. Everybody instantly working remotely. Everybody at home. Before I was protecting my network. Now you're connecting from your network to my network. And, you know, now we have a whole bunch of different avenues that we were not expecting so fast. So a lot of this comes down to awareness training, you know, making your employees into the human firewall. You want everybody to be part of security. You want everybody to feel like, I don't care if you're in accounting or if you're in marketing, but you are part of the security department. Each one of you play a huge role in our organization's safety. And one of the things here is, now that we're all online and there's so many different things that, you know, shadow IT, people are opening up portals and storing stuff there. And it's training. It's a lot of it. The single pane of glass that you hear about all the time from sales professionals, you can have it for certain elements. Yes, I can have certain things all tied together. And it's trying to get more and more things on that single pane of glass. But there's so many things out there, unless you speak to your employees and get them on the same page as you, you know, you're fighting, you're going up against, you know, you're going up against everybody, you know, at that point, because they're going to be pushing back on you. And you need to be able to identify that and kind of saying, hey, you guys are working with us, so we count on you. And then on top of that, then it's kind of putting the measures in place, you know, continue with your security awareness training, phishing campaigns, making sure that they understand, you know, send them make sure that they're getting extra education on this. Make sure that you have the latest next gen antivirus and firewalls out there. You know, the landscape has changed to everywhere. So it's a moving target at this point. So you have to try to look at it from, how can I cover as much ground as possible? And a lot of it starts with the employee.
Last question, and this is one of my favorite questions. I ask this to all my guests because it's the same question, but I get different answers because of people's different backgrounds and experiences. So what has helped you to get to where you are today? And what word of advice would you give to someone that's willing to pursue a career that's similar to yours?
I'm going to say that a lot of it is networking, being outgoing, trying to never saying you've learned enough, and also there is no right path. I'm somebody that, you know, I went through a different path than many people, and you know, I feel I've been very successful, and I feel many of you, you know, many of the individuals out there can be successful just, you know, just following, you know, going down their road. It's just, you have to look at it as everything is an opportunity. Don't hold yourself back looking at it as from a perspective of, hey, I didn't finish college, I can't make it. No, yes, you can. You know, I didn't get that certification, I can't, you know, listen, there's a bunch of ways to get there. My way of always been making is keep your head, keep reading, keep learning, ask questions. Don't feel like you know too much. You always want to surround yourself with people that know more than you. Try to mix yourself, build a community, reach out with people, or try to mix yourself with people that know more than you. You want to learn about hacking, then mix yourself with hackers. You want to learn about, you know, let's say IT automation, start trying to get out there. We have more now than we had at any time in our lives before. We have everything from Twitter to LinkedIn Learning and, you know, and LinkedIn and different things. And you can connect with your trainers. I mean, 20 years ago, I used to read a book. There was no way I was ever going to know that book writer. Nowadays, you go on LinkedIn, you reach out to the book writer, he responds. Hey, thanks for the feedback. Next thing you know, you made a new connection. That connection will help you grow. And it's all about growth. There is no right or wrong. I honestly, you know, say my success comes from, you know, I'm always looking for new things, and I'm always trying to explore new avenues and trying to continue to learn. I mean, even to this day, I mean, I've been in the industry, you know, 15 plus years, and I'm continuing to learn. And what I knew 10 years or 15 years ago has completely changed. Yes, the principles are there, but it's becoming a blur over time. So you want to continue to learn, and don't sit back and go, yeah, I know all of that. No, you don't, because everything changes. So, you know, just continue to push yourself forward. That's the biggest thing there. And as you continue to push yourself forward, you're going to notice that things start falling into place. And unfortunately, you know, there is no one road that you know you're going to get there. This is it's not high school, right? It's not you're going to get the 4 years, graduate, you're done. It's different. You might make a left, and left might not work. You might make a right, it might not work. And then you just go straight up the middle, and bam, you're there. So you just want to follow your path, make yourself who you want to be. And that's where, you know, that's where I leave it. I say that you have to follow your heart, follow your dreams, follow what you want.
Brian, this has been a great discussion. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, Fred. Thank you. Good night.